Hello everyone, Nuskadamo here. This is the first video I make that isn't about my own games in at least a few months, and I want to make it count. I spent yesterday watching J-Rose 11's videos for an healthy amount of hours, and if you don't know who he is a YouTuber who makes gimmick runs for Pokemon Red and Blue mostly. He has played those games from top to bottom at least 50 times by now, and it still has to get tiring. He's that cool, link in description if you don't know him. He's so good in fact that he inspired me to make this video. A challenge run for the original 2 Worlds, which is one of my all-time favorite paddy games, so to speak. So, why an archer run then, may you ask? What's so special about playing as an archer? You see, in a normal game, even one that has big balancing issues, picking any class isn't really a big deal. You know, the worst that can happen is that one is better than the others, and you know, you may have some difficulties that wouldn't otherwise be there. 2 Worlds isn't exactly a normal game, but you will see. First, let's talk a bit about the rules. Medium difficulty, no magic, no use of any other weapon that isn't a bow and arrow, no bombs, no traps, no summonings, all the arrows. Also, I will not be using the exploit to kill Gandohar early. I will use others though, just not this one. I don't consider this a speedrun. I am taking it easy. I am experimenting in real time what works and what doesn't. So yeah, not too much of a scientific approach here, just going with the flow. This could be very similar to a pacifist run in a way, but a pacifist run is impossible because the ending is directly scripted to start when you kill Gandohar. Plus there is a bunch of other unavoidable enemies, like the ones at the very beginning. The 2 Worlds wiki is very empty. I can do much research regarding any potential exploit. I can only help myself with direct experience and speedrunning commentary that I hear here and there. There is not much of it, but it's been useful for this video. I was thinking if I should restart from the last save when I die, instead of using those stones that respawn you when you die. But I decided against it after I died twice from friendly fire, which was in my first minutes of the game. Kinda ticked me off, so yeah, I decided against it. The Groms in the early dungeons are the easiest enemies, and with my base equipment it took around 4 or 5 fully charged arrows to kill them, and they're also way weaker than the regular Groms for some reason. A lot of earlier main quests just consist in going from point A to point B, talking to an NPC, and they are the easier way I have to gain experience at the very beginning. There is also a bunch of secondary quests that can be done without killing anything, so I did those too, just in case. Other than that, the most accessible way to farm experience point in the early games is to kill wolves. Outside of the Groms at the beginning of the game, they're the weakest enemies that there is that you can kill. But it's still not easy, because wolves are very fast, and you can't move when you draw the bow, and they can stop your attack. It's very annoying. Even if they are not very powerful, they can take a beat. Because of that, you always have to run far enough where you can charge an attack, and usually it takes at least 6 or 7 hits of fully charged arrows to kill them. A single one of them, and they usually, in packs, as wolves do. Yeah, there is also a way to just spam arrows without charging them, but it's not worth it. Like, it would take an insane amount of time to just kill a wolf, so don't bother. There is other enemies after that you can choose due to how slow they are, like zombies and ghouls, but they're rarer, they also take a lot longer to kill. The closest compromise later in the run is the Hogs. They are very similar to wolves in how they behave, but they're also way more dangerous, so be careful. Occasionally you can lure some enemies inside a city or a town, and the guards will kill them so you can take the loot, or you can wait for the enemies to kill the guards and take their loot, so it's a win-win situation. But it's also slow, and you don't get many occasions to do it, and unless you are very lucky and precise with when you hit the enemies, you also get no experience points from it. Another thing you can do is have human enemies fight against other creatures. This scenario is a lot more common, but it doesn't work 100% of the time. Sometimes the enemies will just ignore each other. I don't fully understand how this works, but it is how it is. The best thing you can do after the tutorial is over is make at least 600 coins and go to a guy who can teach you how to draw your bow faster and how to have critical hits. It's essential to make this run way easier than it would have been otherwise. Now, my initial idea for the run was to be a hoarder and focus on stealing and picking everything I could so that I could sell it to merchants who have no threshold on how much they can buy from you, or they don't care if it's stolen. It ruins a merchant, but it's also very useful for this run. What merchants sell entirely depends on RNG and changes every in-game day, I think. It usually isn't a problem though, just wanted to point this out. I could buy bows with better attack than the ones I use in this run, but I think the more important statistic is how much it takes to fully draw, due to how hard it is to land a shot in the first place. Anything less than 150% I think is worthless, unless the attack is thrice as higher as the current bow I'm using. Anyways, after messing around with the secondary quest and working on my character for a bit, I decided to continue the main story. The good thing about Two Worlds is that after a couple of expository dialogues, you can do all the main quests in the order that you prefer, no pressure and no anything, which is pretty cool. All you have to do is basically just find a bunch of magic stones and talk to your sister in around 3-4 different places. Then you get to the final boss. The first thing I did was get the air element. You just work there and it's yours. Easy peasy. My second objective was getting the thingy that holds all the stones together. Technically, I'd have to complete a quest in order to access it because it's close behind the gate, but I can just kill the dude who gave me the quest instead. I expected the fight to be a problem, but at one point my victim just gave up and let me kill it with no resisting whatsoever. And best of all, once he died, no one in the village was mad at me. Great gameplay. For my third objective, I had to do something very similar to get the earth element. Kill some dude who was supposed to give me a quest, get a key from his corpse, and then go to some big tomb. There I can get the element. Another relatively easy one. The fire element was a bit trickier. To get it, I had to first go through a tight dungeon full of orcs. To kill one, in theory, at the current level, it would take me almost 2 minutes, and the dungeon had so many of them that the game lagged like crazy. It took me a lot of tries, but eventually got inside the castle, and from there it was smooth sailing. The guy who had the key to get inside the temple where I could find the water element was a bit too tough for my tastes, and in the open too, meaning that others would intervene if I attacked him. So I just did the quest regularly, meaning I killed a much weaker NPC instead. I also did the secondary quest, thinking it was related to the main story. Something about giving someone a medicine, I don't remember. As you can see from the footage, it was very productive use of my time. The dungeon where they put the water element isn't any harder than all the other ones, but I get stuck in it for an amount of time I'd rather not disclose, so I get myself killed and go back to the entry that way. I have all the elements, Now the only thing left before facing the final area of the game is to go and kill a pentagram guardian. I expected this to be hard, and in a way it was, but for some reason the guy was stuck in place, not moving at all. I would have liked to push him down the tower in hope that the fall damage would kill him, but it was not possible, and besides I doubt the programmers of Two Worlds planned the enemies to have something as sophisticated such as fall damage. This boss battle was long, as you can see, very long, and not fun. Once this was over, I decided to get the best bow money could buy, to use all my fire gems and to sell all of my equipment, since from then on anything from Reist and the Gandohar would have been an insta-kill anyways. And so we get to the final area of the game. I start fighting Reist and I realize I made a big mistake going there so underleveled. Now, don't get me wrong, the boss fight itself offers no challenge whatsoever. Reist moves very slow and only hits you if he is very close to you. A decent mage build could destroy him immediately with no issues to speak of. The problem is that he is the second biggest bullet sponge in the whole game after Gandohar. And as of now, it's way too long of a boss battle, so I need to change approach. I grind a bit, I sell the equipment I found in the area, I upgrade my bow, and I reposition my skill points in a way that is more advantageous. It's easier now, but it still takes me over 25 minutes to kick his ass. I could have grinded a bit more to make this boss battle quicker, but I don't want to spend hours of my time for something that, while tedious in comparison, is a lot faster. After I kill Reist, I gain 2 levels, and while that's great, the skill sets of Two Worlds are made in a way that you can't progress to the next upgrade until you reach a certain level. And I did not reach that level yet, meaning that some of the skill points I earned turned out to be useless. Anyways, now it's time for Gandohar. For those who haven't played Two Worlds, there are 2 endings, a good one and a bad one, depending if you choose to side with Gandohar or not. For convenience reasons, we are choosing to side against him. I tried to do the bad ending, but the nameless paladins you get to fight instead of him are straight up impossible for me. I can't even get close to them without getting insta-killed, and I tried a few times. I'd have to grind for probably more hours than what I played so far to make them somewhat manageable, so forgive me if I take the easier way out in this case. Gandohar, on the other hand, is a bitch. In a normal run, it dies in just a few hits, and while the archer run is way harder than a regular run, I still found him to be very easy. His distance attack are so weak that he can't even kill me in one hit, despite me being so underleveled and not having any armor on me. And that alone, considering that there is regular enemies in the game who can still kill me in one hit, not bosses, just normal enemies, is pretty pathetic. It's also worth noting that if I die and go back to the boss area, his AI won't acknowledge me until I reach a certain distance, even if I hit him, meaning that I can just cheese him without him doing anything about it. And that's what I did. Very anticlimactic way to end this run, but also very fitting considering the game in question. This whole thing took me around 6 hours. That may not sound like a lot, but if you were to try this for yourself, you'd realize it absolutely was. Not that I expect Archer percent to become a thing in the speedrunning community, but there is a lot of space for improvement, and I could see someone more talented than me reach the end of the game in less than half of what I did. Still, it was a very fun video to make. I love Two Worlds. I always wanted to try film and document a game run, so here we go. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing for content that has absolutely nothing to do with what you just saw. See ya.
Oh, that's wet.